Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Sagittarius for February 2017. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see what's new on my blog. I write about various topics, not just astrology, but I either just have or am getting ready to post, depending on when you're watching this, a new series on my blog called Astrology and Crystals that talk about crystals that are great for each sign. So, check it out. So what's going on in the month of February for Sagittarius in general? What's relevant? We've got this very interesting time when we're not technically in Venus retrograde yet. We're not in Mercury retrograde anymore, but Venus is about to be retrograde. We're in a shadow period, so anything involving love, beauty, money, artistic endeavors is coming back up to be dealt with, or coming back up to be enjoyed. Sometimes Venus retrograde can bring some magic back from the past involving money or beauty or art or love. It's not just the challenges that have been swept under the rug, although they will definitely come out. If there are weak links, you will see them. We have a very long-term theme coming from multiple aspects that are going on with Saturn and Venus over time, the eclipses, the Venus retrograde cycle. There's this theme of testing money, love, artistic expression, beauty, self-esteem. So we're going to see a lot of that going on this month. So I am calling the theme of the month for Saggies, specific for Saggies, sharing prolific wisdom. And this is because all of you have a chance to experience the solar eclipse in the third house. And the third house is this energy of sharing information. So my affirmation for you is, I enthusiastically share the prolific wisdom that flows through me. I'll get more into detail about that. Eclipses are powerful game-changing times, or eclipse times are powerful game-changing times, when often information comes to us, events, situations that are non-negotiable. You know, if something comes and we don't really have that much of a choice necessarily in many of these things, sometimes we have some say in how we activate the energy, but it brings in things like trajectory changes. You know, this is stuff seems like it comes out of the blue, and all of a sudden you're going this way, now you're going this way, because Spirit says you're supposed to be going this way. You're going to go this way now, right? So we're ending the Pisces Virgo eclipses that started at the beginning of 2015. So something that was a cycle, was a theme over the last 2 years, will be reaching a completion. And we have a continuation of the eclipse cycle with Leo and Aquarius that started mid-2016 and goes into mid-2019. So we've got these simultaneous themes, one ending, one continuing. We have this solar eclipse. Now, like I said, most of you will experience the solar eclipse energy in the third house. Solar eclipse is a new moon on crack, basically. Or I don't want to say crack. We'll say steroids. That's more, well, maybe not that either. We'll say it is divinely amplified new moon energy, right? That's a better high vibe way to say it. But in any case, we have new openings that happen at the new moon. But when you have a solar eclipse, when you're having the new moon, it's in triplicate. The energy is ×3. So the opening potentials can either be 3 times as big or come in 3 different areas. And the third house is the area that's featured. The third house has to do with speaking, expressing, writing, editing, sharing information, researching. It has to do with movement, mobility, your physical mobility, your vehicles. It has to do with your neighborhood events, neighbors, things like that. It has to do with your cars, the ways you get transported, your communication, how you communicate with others, your devices that you communicate with others through. All of this is third house. Early degree Sag placements. So, you know, the first, I don't know, like 5 or so degrees of the sign, 0 to 5 degrees if you're watching for your Sag rising, or the first 5-ish or so days of the, you know, like at the end of November, but not quite all of it. It's just the first 5 days of the sign or so. You have a very strong chance of also having this opening happen in the 4th house of home. Now, it could extend a little bit beyond those 5 degrees. You know, we can't ever really tell this, but it's like the early. We'll just go ahead and group you into the November-born Sages, or like 0 to 9 degrees. You could simultaneously experience this opening in the house of home, family, some new experience with home, a new person living in your house, a new part of your family. Someone marries in, someone gets pregnant, you know, a new roommate comes in. Something like that. Could also be a real estate venture, something having to do with houses, homes. It could be a breakthrough with your psychological space, something from your upbringing where you have a breakthrough, an aha moment that now shifts things for you and becomes elucidated. You very late degree Saggies, so we'll put you we'll just group you in all the late degrees, okay, just in case, because there could be a little orb of energy for this. You could simultaneously experience this solar eclipse in your second house of money, and I'm calling the theme for that avalanches of abundance. So you're kind of spread out across the board here, but all of you have this third house central theme, and then the earlier ones have a little bit of the fourth house. The later ones have this money, finances, values, energy being highlighted or opened up as well. So, that solar eclipse is February 26th, 8 degrees of Pisces. There are some sweet aspects flanking that, but there are also some challenging ones. One with Mars and Uranus, which could bring more of a jolt. So you just want to be careful, especially with your physical body around that time. Eclipses tend to bring in news that's surprising anyway, but when you have one of the eclipses aspecting something with Uranus, it's kind of like an extra energy of, whoa, how did that just happen? Wow, that's really a surprise, you know. So, the lunar eclipse happens on February 10th. It's a full moon lunar eclipse at 22 degrees of Leo. Early degree Saggies are going to experience this in the 9th house. Some middle degree Saggies are going to experience this in the 9th house. And the late degree Saggies might have more of this towards the 8th house. So what does it mean? Full moon eclipses, just like we talked about the new moon experiences in triplicate. Full moons at eclipses, also we experience those in triplicate. So 3 times the drama. 3 times the happy tears if something great has come to fruition. You know, we often associate eclipses with difficult things that happen or drama that's not positive, but that's not always the way that they manifest, you know. Sometimes something comes to fruition that is something that you've wanted for a while and it's bittersweet. There's like an ending to something and you're like, oh, we don't really feel like ready to let this other piece of things go, but it's time and now we're moving on to a new phase. And so, you know, it's a happy thing, but it's emotional. So when we have that full moon on the lunar eclipse energy, you can either have 3 things come to this head, you know, this come to the forefront, or one thing that's like bam, really in your face. When it's happening in the 9th house, as it will happen for most Sag placements, something having to do with writing, teaching, learning, publishing, broadcasting, international business, different countries, different cultures, different languages. It could have to do with your work if you work in one of these arenas, like a work-related thing. It could also be something involving a church or your belief systems. Sometimes when there are full moon eclipses in the 9th house, people have something dramatic happen at their church, either for better or worse. You know, maybe money comes in to add a new service at the church, and that's a really big deal for the person. Or maybe there's something happens and the person no longer resonates with that space or whatever. Sometimes it literally has to do with the place where people worship or connect with their spiritual beliefs. But sometimes it's actually like a spiritual crisis where something happens and it makes people question the things that they believe in. So some people call this a full-on dark night of the soul or a mini dark night of the soul, or it could just be you're having a moment, you know, where something that was working for you is no longer working for you, and you have this movement towards exploring something else. For the rest, or for, you know, more of the later degree placements, you're going to, so that's the last third of the sign, the last 10 days of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. if you're watching for your rising sign. You're most likely going to have this full moon and eclipse happen in your 8th house. And the 8th house has to do with you and your resources merged with someone else and their resources. So you and your partner and their money and your money. You and your in-laws and all of your combined stuff. You and the bank. You and student loans. You and taxes. You and credit. You and capital ventures or a business partner or something like that. So something could come to fruition, come to completion there. Like I say about eclipses, this is more of a time to just kind of watch what's going to happen and not try to plan too much. It's going to be a little bit challenging because Venus is going to be in Aries, and especially with fire signs like us, Sag, we get lit up when planets move into fire signs. And fire signs are the energy of action, of animation, of movement. So when you have things going backwards and then Venus gets in Aries and it makes you impulsive and just like want to go crazy, this is more a time to sit back and be the spider. You have woven your web and now you wait and see what comes in. And then when you activate the catching of the prey, if you will, then you do it carefully, you do it cautiously, you do it thinking about short-term commitments. So I want to get more into what that, this Venus retrograde and the shadow period and all of that, how you can navigate, because opportunities will very likely come in. And I want to help you understand how there's kind of one eye to the past, making flexible arrangements, still being able to do some things, but just kind of putting your toes in the water. I'm calling the general theme of this month for all signs, the tiptoe water test. When you go to the beach or somewhere where there's water, and rather than just jumping right into the water, you stick your toe in, just the tip of your toe, to see what the water temperature is. And unless you're in a very warm climate, usually the water is kind of cold, right? And so maybe you have to put your feet in and then get up to your knees. It makes me think of when I was little. I grew up in New York City, and my cousin, who was like a sister to me more than my cousin, and she was a little bit older than me, and she would taunt me and she'd say, "Stop being such a sissy, just jump in the water." And if you've ever gone swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, it's very cold. So I would put my toe in and say, "Oh gosh, I don't want to go in," and then it would take me time to get used to it. And then she would jump right in. And I'm not saying that in general there's one way of being better than the other. But when we're talking about astrological rhythms at play, this is very poignant because there is a time to jump right in. And there's a time to do the tiptoe water test and go in and get used to it with your ankles, and then slowly go in and get used to it with your knees, etc. And that's the time that we're working with in February, because even though we technically don't have any planets, personal planets, meaning the ones closest to us, like Mercury, Venus, Mars, are usually the ones we talk about being retrograde, the personal planets, we don't have any of that happening technically in February. But we just got past Mercury retrograde and its shadow period, and we've started Venus retrograde shadow period. Venus goes retrograde from March 4th through April 15th. Venus retrograde happens around every year and a half. I definitely recommend you listen to my Venus retrograde video because Venus rules love, beauty, and money. So everything about relationships and finances and business decisions and artistic journeys, and beauty decisions, all are housed under this Venus retrograde energy, even in February, because the shadow period has started. So I go into a massive amount of detail about what to do, what not to do, and why in that video that I'm not going to cover in this. So you definitely need to listen to that as a supplement to this video. And really pay attention to that for February, March, and April. So when we're in a shadow period of a retrograde, like we are in February, right? It doesn't go retrograde till March 4th, but the shadow period started at the end of January. So the whole month of February, every day we get closer to March, is getting deeper in this Venus retrograde energy. It's kind of like when you go to the beach. If you haven't crossed over the bridge yet to the island that the beach is on, you start seeing little beachwear, you know, tourist places and little tiki huts and things that feel beachy, but you're not at the beach yet, but the beach vibe is there, you know? So that's what a shadow period is like. It's like it starts acting as if you're there, even though you're not officially. And it's very relevant because the same rules pretty much apply for the shadow period as they do for the retrograde. And that is to not jump into anything that's a long-term commitment if you can possibly help it. Now, this is doubly so because this is a rule of the retrogrades, and this is also one of the things that we talk about with eclipses. February holds 2 eclipses. We have a full moon eclipse on February 10th, and we talked about that some. That's the lunar eclipse at 22 degrees of Leo. And we've got that solar eclipse on February 26th, that's at 8 degrees of Pisces. So when we talked about that as well, you know, so the general energy of eclipse is kind of like that be the spider energy. You know, you weave your web and then you let things come to you. And you act as is necessary, but not unnecessarily and not without caution. So that's the story of the energy of February is, you know, you want to tiptoe in, you want to get used to the water, you want to try things on. It's a wonderful time for going back over things. So anything that starts with the word or the prefix RE, you know, redoing, resting, couples therapy is something that's amazing for retrogrades. Going back to romantic places that you've been with your partner before, bringing the magic back, spending more time with your partner, anything that you're kind of returning back to within your relationship. And it doesn't have to only be a challenging thing. Sometimes Venus retrograde can bring up arguments and problems. If there are weak links in your relationship or your money space, they're going to show up because that's the job of the retrograde. But if there's sweetness there as well, then sometimes a return of the magic occurs. So it's a good time to spend more time with your honey. You know, it's not the best time to take on a new romantic relationship or a new financial relationship if you can help it, because you have these rose-colored glasses on as it relates to money and love and beauty and artistic things, expensive items and things like that. You're not seeing clearly, so you don't want to make big decisions. But trying things on, experimenting, making small decisions, being cautious is great. Learning and education is wonderful. Trying on something for a new profession, you know, getting some information or education that might prepare you to do something in the future. All of that is fine for the retrogrades. We just want to keep our commitments to, like, you know, between 4 and 6 months, if possible, you know. Also the same goes for a move. If you have to move or you're trying to do something different, when you move someplace, go into temporary lodging, you know. Don't get there and then buy a house, you know. You're not seeing clearly is the whole point. And when Venus goes direct, you'll look at everything totally differently. So you want to make sure there's wiggle room with the arrangements you've made so that when you see things differently, you're not locked into too much that you then can't shift. See, that's part of the point. So it's an artist's wonderland. Retrogrades are wonderful for doing art. And they can even be great for selling art, especially when you're going back to people or doing things before that you've done for promoting it. Backing up files is one of the single most important things you can do during any retrograde. So many people are going to have their important things lost during retrograde. So if you want to spend the time doing this proactively, I always make these, you know, do these videos early so that you can get prepared for the time. As soon as you're hearing this, it would be good for you to be backing up files. And backing up anything and seeing to security and just kind of getting everything, all your ducks in a row that way. Some sweet energies that will be present, and you can see more about why I'm calling these sweet energies, what planets are at play, etc. when you sign up for my free email newsletter. So if you go to anniehelpsyou.com and you sign up for my free email newsletter, I do a write-up a month early, a written version of the energies ahead with more details about what goes on on the certain days that make certain days bring sweetness, and then the challenging days. So the sweet energies are on the 9th, 10th, 11th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 21st, 23rd, and 26th. Okay, so 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, 23, 26. Now also remember, when I give you these dates, that we can experience transits before or after the actual day they occur. So it's like the days around these days, you can feel the energies that are true to the transits occurring on those days. Before I give you the challenging days, I also want to remind you, if you have already signed up for my free email newsletter and you're not receiving my monthly reports, there is some sort of glitch in many email services that put group emails into your social or promotions folder. So I send these things out like clockwork, like around a month early, every month. I always have, and I will continue to do this. So if you're not getting them, it's possible that they're going either to spam, to your social or promotions or events folders, and you're not even aware of it. So look in those folders and do a search for Annie Botticelli, and you should find some there, very likely. And then you move them into your inbox to let your Gmail or whatever it is, Gmail is infamous for this, know that you want those things into your inbox. Okay, so I've had this happen quite a bit. Okay, so the challenging days are the 2nd, the 5th, 10th, 22nd, 26th, and 27th. 2nd, 5th, 10th, 22nd, 26th, 27th. You might notice that some of these dates are ones I listed for the nice transits, and that is true because there are some challenging aspects that are happening at the same time as there are sweet aspects. So you might get, a mixed bag there. So the themes for the month: tiptoe water test, avoid the deep plunge, try things on, do things short term. You can make decisions as they relate to moving some things along, but not big launches, not big new things, not investing tons of money unless you have it to spare. Definitely check out my Venus retrograde video so you can understand more. The fact that Venus is in Aries through the month is going to make people want to be rambunctious and impulsive, and that's adding to this energy where you're going to want to do something, and it may or may not be the best thing to do. So be the spider. Let things come to you and leave wiggle room with how you activate those potentials. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. See my offerings. I teach an astrology apprenticeship program, a course on creating successful online business if you want to be free of your geography and work online. I also have a new coach certification course that includes my online business course if you'd like to be a coach as your profession. I always have new things on my blog, so check it all out at anniehelpsyou.com, and I will see you next month. Bye.